Jesus could have had all the kingdoms of the world. Satan came to him and said, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. Just bow down and worship me, which means worship your own strength. Jesus looked at all the kingdoms of the world and said, well, I see that that's pretty nice, but that can't glorify my flesh with immortality. Do you see how it made that idea foolish? Jesus didn't have to grit his teeth. He looked at it and said, no, I know what I'm after. That can't give it to me. If our kids don't even really know what they're after, how can they discern what can and can't give it to them? How do we even begin to talk to them, right? The faith in Jesus on the cross will make our kids a living sacrifice, where they're not conformed to the world. They'll live in the world, but they won't try to be justified through the things of the world. They'll be in the world. They'll look at the strength in the world and the strength of the flesh, and they'll see it's powerless to satisfy the longing they have for life. The world might come and tell them that they should be in this image, but when they hear that they should be in this image, immediately they'll think, well, can that image give me a glorified, perfect life? No, it can't. So that's foolish. It can't satisfy the longing in my heart. Now they have discernment working in them, where they can discern what's good for food and what isn't good for food. Jesus knew what was good for food. He knew what could satisfy his hunger. He had a very specific hunger. You ever felt hungry and you weren't hungry for like any kind of a food? You like, I want Chinese food. You ever had like a craving for a certain kind of a food? Well, if you had to go to another restaurant that didn't have that food, was your craving satisfied? No. Jesus knew exactly what he was craving, exactly what he was hungering for. That exercised his senses and made it real clear what could give it to him and what couldn't give it to him, right? That's the same thing that will happen in our kids. When they're confronted with the corruption and the lack in the world, when they're confronted with the accusation in the world, telling them that they don't have something that's needed to experience life, in that moment they can begin to understand what they're actually longing for. Because someone could say you don't have what you need for life, and you could feel lack. They need to understand when they feel that lack what they're longing for. I'm longing for the likeness of God's immortality. I'm longing for what I see in the glorified man Jesus. Okay, that's why I feel this. That can't give it to me. So why am I going to busy myself with it? Right? It can't give it to me. They'll begin to understand why they can feel lack. And they'll begin to see the Father of lights there with them, shepherding their life, preparing a table full of life for them. And they'll begin to start connecting with the Father when they feel lack, just like Jesus did, because he saw real clearly that the Father was the only one who could satisfy the longing. Right? It wasn't a guess. It wasn't because Jesus used his willpower and was better than everybody else. It's because he had wisdom. He had understanding. And so it was real simple for him to see. Well, even should I come down off this cross, that doesn't give me the likeness of God's immortality. Even should I turn myself into a boy, that won't give me immortality. Even should I fashion myself in this image, in the image that the world says I should be in if I'm a woman, that won't satisfy the longing I have in my heart, because what I'm longing for is immortality, right? The faith revealed in Jesus on the cross will keep our kids from thinking the love and the acceptance they're longing for is found in conforming themselves to what the world says is good and beautiful. They'll be able to discern it real quickly. It'll keep their hearts from the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, right? The pride of life is when you're lifted up in your own heart, thinking you can use your ability to fashion yourself in the image that can serve you with life. The lust of the eyes is that your eyes could be confronted with something that looks good for food. Your eyes could see something in the world that you think can satisfy the hunger you have. The lust of the flesh is that your flesh tries to attain to something that can satisfy the longing you have in your heart, right? And if you don't understand what those things are, why you feel it, where they come from, you will make all sorts of wrong conclusions about your life. And you will find your life born from all those wrong conclusions, right? And then you become conformed to the image of the world.